host, Mrs. X, and we are in the program Soulful Talk. I have a guest today, and she's a clinical psychologist, and we are going to talk about a very sensitive subject. But as always, I hope that this is going to empower you, to equip you, and to bring some enlightenment. So I just like to introduce my guest. My guest is Miss L Mamela, and she is a mother, and she's from here, KZN in South Coast. She holds an honors degree in psychology and master's degree in clinical psychology from the University of Natal. Maybe Luyanda, can you tell us about yourself?
Thank you so much for having me. Hi everyone, I'm Luyanda Mamela, as I've been introduced. I am a mother of a beautiful boy. I'm from a rural area just outside Port Shepstone called Izingolweni. It is in KZN. I am a clinical psychologist by profession. I also did study masters in public health as well. Currently, I'm working at Art Institute, which is located at UKZN Howard College campus. That is where I'm working as a monitoring and evaluation specialist, and I'm also a mentor of psychology students. So that's just me in a nutshell.
Oh, beautiful. I am very excited to talk to you about this, Luyanda, because I think our topic on trauma, especially when you just come from Mental Health Month in October and November, that is something that is so real in our society, and we need to create more platforms for people to talk about. So my first question is, in your own words, what is trauma?
Okay, so I would describe trauma as an injury or a damage to one's psyche after living through an extremely frightening or distressing event, and it may result in challenges in functioning or coping normally after an event. So I think the most important key items or key themes that one must be aware of is the fact that for trauma, for us to identify trauma as a trauma, there must be an identifiable damaging event. So there must be something that an action event that takes place, and it must be distressing, and lastly it must cause some maladaptive functioning from a person. So it must affect your thought processing, your decision making, your day-to-day functioning. So that is what we refer to as trauma.
Okay. So if I understand you properly, it's like an event that has happened in your past and that has adjusted how you think and how you view things. Something that is traumatic.
Yes. You've just you've just explained it in a very concise way. It is exactly that.
Okay. So for someone, trauma, is it something that we can trace to how we were raised, maybe our background and environment? Does it have an influence on our mental health?
Anything can be traumatic. Our background, yes. Our environment, yes. Our personalities, yes. And the people that we associate ourselves with, our friends, family, neighbors, the community at large, all those factors can cause or triggers some traumatic events in our lives, and even some life-threatening events. Like in KZN, we had some experiences of floods. So such events, like those natural events, that they can be regarded as traumatic events as well.
So true. I think, as we were talking, I was being reminded at school, society, when you had these people who used to bully you, I think that experience on itself, Jay, can be very traumatic, eh?
Of course, definitely.
So, Leander, I've heard people talking about different types of trauma. There's what is called big T trauma and small T trauma, probably based on the severity. Can you clarify for us what is the difference between a big T trauma and a small T trauma?
Well, according to my knowledge, we can't really quantify trauma. You know,
Okay.
I do not want to box it in the terms of quantity, because trauma is very subjective. What one might find trivial and not traumatic, the other person can find it traumatic. However, we can quantify the intensity of the actual event that happened, because obviously we can't equalize experiencing murder and maybe losing a shoe, maybe for a child, as
Yes.
equal experiences. But for a child at that certain age, losing a shoe might be a big issue, because you know that when you go back home, your mother or your parent is going to spank you, shout at you, or whatever the case may be. So for a child, that may be like very traumatic, even though like at a layman's eye or perspective, it seems like it is a trivial experience. So we can't really quantify trauma to be a big trauma or a small trauma. It is such a subjective experience, so it differs from a person to person.
Okay, no, I
Yeah.
hear you. Talking about parents shouting, I mean, that's also on itself can be classified as a trauma depending on what age you are. So this link into my next question. I've heard people saying that trauma can be transferred from generation to generation. Can you explain to us how can trauma or pain be passed from one generation to the next? And how can one work with that in order to heal? For example, if I don't want to pass the trauma that was passed to me by my caregivers, what can I do as the first step?
Okay. So intergenerational trauma, it is the theory that trauma can be inherited, right? As you were saying, that it can be passed from generation to the next. So there are different ways that that can happen. Firstly, it can happen, or rather, it can be passed down from by word of mouth, through movies or storytelling. For instance, like we can't talk about South African context without mentioning the apartheid era that our grandparents or our mothers experienced. So like if you watch movies or you are hearing stories and the experiences that Black people experienced back then, you can't shy away from the fact that you get traumatized as well, and associate more with the people of your color, because you feel their pain, and you also put yourself in their shoes and imagining yourself how you could have dealt with the situation and stuff. So apartheid left this legacy of trauma, because we hear about these things, we watch movies like your Sarafinas and everything like that. So it can be passed down from in a social context like that, from storytelling or word of mouth. And also it can be passed down through genes as well, like the makeups of the person. Because when your parents or your close relationships, I mean, when your close relatives, like your close kinships, suffer from a mental illnesses, that as a child, that predisposes you to any form of a mental issue, whether a traumatic illness or otherwise. So this is what we call predisposing factors, where your parents or grandparents or whoever is in line in your family, or rather in your line in the family, suffers from a certain illness, and that makes you vulnerable to have an onset of illnesses as well. So this alters your genes, the way that they function, so you are susceptible to the onset of different conditions, trauma related conditions included. And also environmental factors can also affect how trauma is passed from one generation to the next. Like if your environment that you are brought up in is not conducive enough, you are likely to also like inherit to inherit the trauma that your mom or your parents have experienced, because you are in that in particular environment. You are seeing, you are witnessing, you are hearing all these wrong things that you are not supposed to as a child. So that creates a trauma and triggers some illnesses from your part as well. And to answer the last question on how one can maneuver around in dealing with that type of a trauma, therapy is one of the things that one can choose or uptake in order to deal with traumas, whether inherited or otherwise. And also medication, like the psychopharmacology, where a psychologist can refer you to a psychiatrist, and then you can try and start to take your medications depending on the issue at hand.
Wow. So that's scary, eh? Thank you. That was a mouthful. I mean, I didn't know that it can be inherited through genes as well, eh?
Yeah, it can, just like any other illnesses, because like anxiety, it shouldn't be this shocking. Because even with diabetes, anxiety, we are not surprised if you are diabetic, because it runs in my family. My mom had it, my mom's mom had it, so even with mental illnesses as well, that is the issue. They just make you predisposed, they make you vulnerable to onset on any medical condition. So just like any other medical condition, so is mental illness.
Okay, no, that's so profound. That was, yeah, enlightening for me. And talking about the issue of healing, you've touched on something about the political space in our country, the environment. How does that affect you? I've actually heard of a story of this lady, and I'm sharing this because I think we are a very traumatized society as South Africans because of our apartheid legacy. And not dealing with that and healing with that affect on how we conduct ourselves or the type of leaders that we reverence in society. So I had this lady, she was a politician in another African country. And she rose up to be a very successful giant activist because of her involvement in the struggle. And outside, she was, being praised. People outside, in the outside world, she was a giant, a very high politician status. But inside, in the house, the way the child was describing this woman, she was saying her mother used to be like alcoholic and abusive because of what she went through when she was a political prisoner. The language that was spoken to her, the abuse, the shouting, the slapping. So indirectly, this woman outside there, she was being celebrated as a giant politician. In the house, she used to abuse her children. And is this because of there was no acceptance, there was no healing? How can someone who was being in that situation, who knows how painful it is, and transfer this situation to her loved ones?
The thing with knowledge, because your question is like, how can this giant person, as you are describing her, and who has experienced some unfavorable experiences, pass them down, right, to her family, the children, to be specific. So the thing is, with information is not equal to a change behavior. Just because you know something, it doesn't necessarily mean that it is going to alter your how you conduct yourself. Like, for instance, I always refer to, like, to make this statement more understandable or digestible. I always make this example of HIV/AIDS and unprotected sex and so forth. So we know that HIV is deadly if it is not managed or treated. But as much as we know this, people still go out there, have sex without protection. So, like, this language of have one partner, condomize, abstain, it has been preached, but the behavior, it's still not in line with the information that we have. So which mustn't raise which mustn't make our eyes which mustn't make us raise our eyebrows, because it shows that the information is not equal to a change behavior. Basically, there are some factors in between. The fact that one knows that something is wrong, it doesn't necessarily mean that they will do right. There are some factors: the personality, the environment, and other power dynamics that may be happening. So we may never know what is going on with this particular or prestige person that you are referring to. But yeah, there might be some factors in between the knowledge and the actual behavior.
Okay. So knowledge and information is not necessarily going to change behavior. That's why we need to get healing. That's why we need to seek help. Go to a therapist, go to a psychologist, and start the journey.
Yes, and just resolve all these childhood traumas that one experienced, because it was never our fault. Whatever that happened when we were still young, it was never our fault. We were just in the wrong space, in the wrong time, with the wrong people. It was really never it was never our wrongdoing. So yeah.
Okay. My next question, Luyanda, is one of the objectives that I have as a parent. I think I'm a mother of 3, you are also a mother.
Yes.
Is that we raise children that don't have to heal from their childhood. You mentioned that it was never a child's fault. It was the environment. What do you think are the top 5 things, according to you, that a parent can give a child to ensure that they have a healthy childhood and they don't have to heal from their childhood?
Well, I think, Matidi, so like the basic needs of a child should be met, like your shelter, food, love, and education, whether formal or informal, because education doesn't start or stop at the classroom. So whether formal or informal, and also healthy parenting styles, where one must be a protector of the child, and also a discipline, and also allow the child to explore. So yeah, I think just the basic needs, basically. I don't know, but top 5, I think I think I've covered 5: shelter, food, love, healthy parenting, education, whether in a classroom or outside, and yes, and also just allow a child to be a child.
Yeah, no, I like this one about healthy parenting, because like in our previous example, if you don't recognize and accept that you have healing that you need to help to do with your inner self, you can pass down that. You cannot be a healthy parent if you haven't healed yourself, right?
Yeah.
So you first need to work on yourself, heal on your own issues. And as you were talking, I was being reminded, actually, when I started become interested in this topic, I used to say to my son, who's 14 now, when I grew up, my mom used to do 1, 2, 3, 4. I can even in shying a fatuku because my mom used to do that to us. And my son looked at me and said, "Mommy, are you saying everything that your mom used to do to you, are you going to do it to us?" That question shook me like nothing before, because I knew there were things that they used to happen to me as a child that I didn't like.
Yes.
And it was so shocking that knowing, like you said, knowing information doesn't change behavior.
Yes.
So I said, what can I do to change the behavior of the things that I didn't like, and to hang on to the one, because now I'm an adult, I have a choice. I know the good things that I took from my parents, and I know the ones that I do not like. Yeah, that was so powerful. Work on yourself, like you said, explore, allowing kids to be creative, be kids, protect them. Yeah. Sometimes the kids, they deal with so much drama. You find a 14-year-old raising 2 siblings. I mean, they are in no state to be, we call them what, step parents. But we giving them that burden because we have to do 1, 2, 3, 4. And that on its own brings so much burden on a 14-year-old because we don't allow them to be kids. We don't protect them.
Definitely. Because even the cognitive development of a child, like when you are 14, we are still growing physically and mentally as well. So your decision making is still very immature for you to be rearing or taking care of your younger siblings. So as a 14-year-old, you should be going out there playing soccer if you're a boy or a girl or whatever that you choose, and making mistakes, and have someone to teach you certain skills that will see you through your journey as you grow up. So imagine now a 14-year-old thinking about what are we going to eat tonight, school fees tomorrow, how are you going to get to school. So it's just too much. It gets stressful to you as an adult. So you can just imagine to a 14-year-old, I mean, with their immature or underdeveloped mental physique, I mean, and physical bodies. So it can be very stressful and unfair, to say the least.
Yeah, that one I can relate to, because me and my sister, we used to be like 2 years old gap.
Yes.
And for some reason, because we're living with relatives, I sort of ended up worrying about what are we going to have for lunch tomorrow, me and my sister, if my mom did not bring food. Those things, they force you to grow. It's like you don't have time to be a child and play, because you are worrying about someone else who's just 2 years younger than you. Hey, one of the things, Leander, that you said was love is very important in the basic needs, right?
Yes.
Because love needs to be modeled, and it's always important that we show our children love so that they can learn how to love. What are some of the consequences of a child who can be deprived of love by a caregiver or a parent?
Well, it depends, because some children would identify with in inverted commas with a bad caregiver, in a sense that maybe a caregiver would deprive love, right? So a child would identify with that parent and internalize whatever the parent is expressing, and then the child would internalize that behavior, to say, okay, it is normal to show hatred, to not care about things, to withhold certain things like affection, love, support, food, and stuff. And when they grow up, they will mirror exactly that to their own parent, to their own families. And omunye would see this love deprivation, and then decide to say, when I grow up, I do not want to be like my mom. So whether a child is deprived love or not, there is no linear or linear correlation to say once you are deprived love, you're gonna turn out to be like this. So it's very difficult to answer that question, because it is an either or. Some may be negatively affected by that experience, and some might take that experience and they get motivated to do better. So it can be either or, really. You can either associate with the your caregiver's love deprivation, or learn from it and decide that you want to do better. Or maybe it is not even you deciding. Maybe through therapy and everything else, you see that, no, man, that was not good. Even maybe you can be taught even by a 14-year-old to say, no, mommy, you can't be doing everything that your mom was doing to you. Then that was a turning point for you as a person. You see, so it can be either or.
Okay, no, I hear you. So if I hear you correctly, is that it can be either or, because other people will take the learning from that negative situation and say how I want to turn out different. If I didn't have a parent who provided clothes for me or shelter, when I have children, I will want to make sure that they don't lack shelter and clothes.
Correct.
And the other one can transfer that behavior of not loving, mirroring the same behavior that they were taught.
Yes. And also to add on that, love giving or deprivation is not everything. also the environment, because you can give love all you want, but then if the environment is toxic or unconducive for a child, you can love the child, but then if there are other chaotic events or experiences that are surrounding the child, you know, like a child can turn out to be something else. As much as they were loved and their needs were taken care of, but if the neighborhood that your child are exposed to, your friends that come to visit at home, they are something else that you are not that is not in sync with what you are trying to plant in your children's life, that is another issue as well. As much as you can love all you as much as you can love them all you want, but then the environment as well plays a major role.
Sure, that means we have to be careful what we expose our children to, hey?
Definitely. It is very challenging because they go to school, we are not there, we don't know ukuthi badlala nabo bani during break time, and uthisha uthini in class, you know. So yeah, it's just one of those things.
Yo, yeah, hi. Kunzima mpela. You know, somehow, you know, at work, you also studied, I saw clinical psychology, right?
Yes.
There's this test that they normally conduct, and they say that the perception and the belief system and the values that we adapt as adults is based on the environment, like you said, but mostly from our childhood. And those things, if you do not deal with them, they tend to surface later in life on your relationships, for example, how you look at people in authority, how you relate to your spouse or your partner, and how you relate to your children, and also your extent of self-awareness. You know, how aware are you? So I just wanted us to just go deeper into that, because most of the time people like to disconnect the work environment and also the home environment. And yet somehow we know that we are a complete person. We don't change our behavior when at work and at home, but somehow we bring the same traits and they affect who we become as well. So can you give us an example of like something that a wounded inner child can continue to present in adulthood? So let's say as my inner child, I have abandonment on rejection issues. How can that something continue to display itself later in life?
Okay, so when let's say a child is experiencing some issues, some attachment issues, yes, from their significant caregivers, whether it's rejection, resentment, or abandonment. So firstly, a child would study the situation, right? Because children, as much as they are young and they have immature mental capacity, but it doesn't mean that they can think. They can think. They make sense that is in their level. So when we are
mechanisms,
yes. So when such things happen, a child would study the situation, the resentment, the rejection, the abandonment, and then the child internalizes it, processes it, and makes sense of the situation. Whether the child understands that, oh, so this is the normal way of living, you know, or a child would say, I don't want this type of situation, you know. So it can be either or. So when you grow and you've internalized these maladaptive normalities, you know, that you've normalized, but they are not adaptive. So they will affect or alter the way that you look at yourself, like your self-image. Because if you were abandoned or rejected as a child, it would be very difficult for you to love yourself, because you would ask yourself, why is my mom not doing 1, 2, 3 for me? Why am I not getting a hug? Why am I not getting praises when I've done good? But when I've done bad, it is always ukshawa all the time. so there's something wrong with me, So a child will see themselves as ugly, as failures, because they are never praised or anything like that. They do not know a well done, Luyanda, you've done well, and they usually attract or associate themselves, whether even a choice of friends, they will choose friends who will try to compensate for this love that they didn't receive as children. So you'll find that they would want love from wrong places, because there are people who are going to say, no, you, baby girl, you are beautiful. A girl child is not used to that a compliment, right? So now this sugar daddy is going to say, baby girl, you are beautiful. So what is going to happen, to that child? And then also even the bullies, it is easy to bully someone with a shaky foundation of a self-image, because you can't even be assertive and fight for yourself, because really that is what we've internalized, that really I'm good for nothing. If my mom doesn't love me, who would love me? So even the career that you might choose, you might find yourself boxing yourself to careers that maybe they do not allow you to speak freely in front of people, because how am I going to see people? How are they going to perceive me? Or even maybe you won't even have aspirations in jet to even become anything, because I'm just good for nothing, because that's what my mom planted, or my dad planted when I was small. So the childhood experiences do influence our sense of self, and the choice of people around us, and the way that we see the world as well, and also our future aspirations. So this topic is such a very important and very deep one, because it carries who we are, because you can lose a sense of self from childhood trauma, a sense of seeing abanye abantu next to you and the world. So if that is distorted, so who are you? If you don't have a healthy sense of yourself, how you relate with the people next to you, how you see the world, and also what you hope to be.
Yo, that is deep, eh? Growing up with a sense that there's something wrong with me, because you didn't get that from the caregiver. The importance of parents affirming their child that they are beautiful,
Yes.
so that you don't get to hear the man who's just in the street telling you for the first time that you are beautiful. You are loved. Small things like that. I think as parents, we are so quick to reprimand and forget to show love and affirm our children. And affirmation is very important from what I'm hearing. Okay. Yeah, this is getting deeper. So, from our childhood, people tend to have different forms of addiction because of something that they didn't deal with, whether it was avoidance of feeling, or the avoidance of the coping mechanism that one created because they were lacking something, like attachment issues, like you've alluded earlier. And these forms of addiction can include activity addiction, cognitive addictions, feeling addictions, and also, the normal one that we know, what we call drugs. Can you explain to us different types of addictions so that we can pick up the signs? There are obvious one, when a person is an alcoholic, it's a drug, she's drug user. We're saying that, no, these people have some issues. Maybe we can pick up. But there are very silent ones, that I've seen. Once you sit with a person, you see which they're compensating for something. So what are the examples of other addictions?
Okay, to answer that question, because most of the time when we are talking about addictions, especially the normal one that you're referring to, the substance one, it is normally used as a defense mechanism, right? Of which a defense mechanism, and it is when we are trying to push down the negative past that is likely to contaminate the present. right?
Yes. Yes.
So I always look at the defense mechanism like a stopper, you know, like your bathtub. When you have a stopper to close, because I'm about to take a bath, I do not want this water to go away, or even the dirt from the pipe to come up to this water that I'm going to be using to bath myself. So now the defense mechanisms get like a stopper, the way you are closing, this clean water mustn't be contaminated by the dirt from the pipes. So people use different kind of mechanisms get to cope or to separate the cleanliness and the dirtiness, of which there are different types of coping mechanisms. Some other people, they can sometimes the defense mechanisms can be positive or negative, like the substance use. One, you would find that a person uses substances not just because they are trying to be thugs or hooligans or something like that, but when you try to find out the issue, you would find that they are trying to numb the situation. It's their safe space because the reality of the world is too overwhelming or is too painful to deal with a sober mind. So they opt for this experience to say, no, you know what, I do not want to deal with this, so let me just intake something that is going to elevate me to be this superhuman sort of, so that you can easily manage the stresses that you are experiencing. And also we have other types of defense mechanisms like projection, where you would find yourself that because ubaba ekhaya is abusive to you, but you can't fight ubaba back physically, because yena he's powerful and all that.
And
So
big,
what?
yeah.
Yes. So what do you do emsebenzini? Ama subordinates akho ufighter now, because kahle kahle umuntu wena that you want to fight ubaba ekhaya, but you can't because physically it is almost impossible. So you project your issues to abanye abantu esibuye sikubize nge-scapegoat, ukuthi you fight with those people that it is possible to fight with. Sometimes you just repress izinto where uyabona ukuthi they are negative experiences or thoughts, and you just shove them down nje ukuthi angasurface kwi-conscious mind yakho. You just shove them down, like intentionally. You just, whenever a thought comes, when you intentionally like brush it off. Sometimes you would do what my colleague usually explains with, for instance, let's say you have a heartbreak. If you are a musician, you would just write a song about that heartbreak. It's just, for you, that is some form of a catharsis, just to talk about the heartbreak, then maybe to talk to this person who broke your heart, to say, I'm hurt, I still love you, can we work things out? Instead, you just write a song. For other people who are athletes or who are athletes or whatever the case may be, instead of fighting with the person that they want to fight with, one would opt for boxing instead. Those healthy defense mechanisms. Then fighting a person, let me just opt for karate lessons and boxing, or let me just go and run. So one may be addicted to those defense mechanisms, of which it is, as you were saying, it may be difficult to identify such, because some may look healthy. And when you do not know ukuthi njengoba ngigijima kangaka, it is me running away from this toxic home, let me just go outside ngiyogijima instead. So when you think uLuyanda is just a fitness bunny always on the road, this is my addiction for me to deal with the issue at hand. I can't stay at home around this time because partner wami is coming back and uzomlwisa. Let me rather go out, So it is difficult to get to identify is this a defense mechanism, or it's just a healthy habit of me exercise every day.
Yeah, but it looks good, because I've seen people, like now that you are sharing the story about healthy or projecting your issues on others or healthy defense mechanism.
Yes.
I know of a friend whose father was never present. They migrated to another Joburg, Durban, and they left them in the homelands in KZN.
Yeah.
And this person used to love karate.
Yes.
Very good in karate, but now that you are saying it, is that maybe it was his defense mechanism.
It is possible. It is highly possible. It is very possible. Yeah.
And for me, the one I could relate with, sometimes when you don't want to deal with our problems, the one that came home as we were speaking is me. I sort of turned out to be like a workaholic. I work so much, and yes, it has its benefits. You can move up the career ladder and stuff.
Yeah.
But the reason I was pushing myself so hard is that there was something I was compensating for until I felt like, I can be accepted. I don't have to be perfectionist, super. I don't have to prove myself to anyone.
Yes.
The way I am is not what defines me, is not my success.
Yes.
And other people, they are being defined by big cars, houses, and stuff like that because of something that they didn't deal with, that they came up with from their childhood.
Yeah.
Wow. Projection, your issues, defense mechanism, and some of this mechanism can be healthy, some can be unhealthy.
Yes.
I think I'm coming here for a therapy lesson. Just
you better.
So, Luanda, there's a story that I heard again on the radio a while ago. I think it was in October. I was on my way driving to work. And this lady was on this Sunday show on Metro FM. Tammy, it's a gospel show. And they were talking about how she lost her mom, her grandmother. Her grandmother was the only caregiver. She was an orphan. And they were only leaving both of them in the house. I think at that time she was 13, 14, so still developing.
Yes.
And the grandmother died, but she couldn't understand. So she slept with the grandmother the whole night. And the whole experience was traumatic. But us African people, by the time the family came the following day, when she went to ask for help, that Ukoko is not waking up, and the neighbors came, she said that she didn't get help for being in that situation, because for her in the morning, when Gogo didn't wake up, she tried to make food for Gogo, she tried to feed Gogo. It was not registering to a 12-year-old that Gogo is gone. And she said that affected her life because she never really got therapy. So my question is, how can we educate our families, our society, and our communities about situations like that where you need to intervene?
Yeah, such a traumatic story. Well, I believe that education and more education and more education and also to because and also moving on with times, because at this era esikuyona manje almost everyone une-access to internet. So ama spaces like these lawa wavulayo, ama podcast kanje, where we discuss ama issues akanjena, and we try to make them as relatable as possible, because we are making examples ngempela that abantu that can associate with. Yabo, we are not too westernized, but we are taking everything home, where umuntu can say, hey, uyazi nami I actually 1 2 3, I actually 1 2 3. So education through wonke ama platforms, whether radios, your TVs, even the storylines kuma TV, kungahlezi kukumjolo kuphela, but asibone story umuntu estrugglisha with depression and all the dynamics depression, so that abantu bezobona ukuthi no man, this is normal, because ama mental issues, just like any other illnesses, they are normal. So and also our celebrities and influencers now agathi come out of khuzane ama closet and talk about their issues, because people, especially youth, they look up to your influencers and your celebrities. Singezwa nje sekuthiwa umuntu committed suicide and yonke lento iba secretive, asizi ukuthi what was the issue, akube out and open ukuthi a person was fighting depression, akazange aye ukuyofuna usizo, and it led up to is suicide. So all these prominent people that people look up to, if umuntu enzile a different hairstyle, everyone would wants to copy Rihanna, how she wears, how she does her hair and stuff. Even ama challenges are Rihanna must share ama challenges akhe to say, I'm struggling, my boyfriend is doing 1 2 3, so that a person can see what, no man, if Rihanna is going through such, it means it is normal, because sadly enough, we can teach people, but because they see us as lay people, they don't recognize into show it is dead solid. So if those people that they look up to, especially youth, they come out to say, I'm struggling with the depression, I'm struggling with this, I think it would be very better, because the association is very important.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Sharing our challenges, because I think most of the time we like to share a good story in social media.
Yes.
But the reality is that life is not like that, eh?
Yes. And nje you would go to Instagram, uhlike nje kuma feeds, you see wonke umuntu ushutha usendaweni yobumnandi, ushuthile ukudla, akekho nje othatha ivideo ukuthi no, I'm in my manic episode of a mood disorder. This is what I'm feeling. This is how am I dealing with things. Kure kakhulu. So I mean, I would suggest ukuthi, like, our influencers and celebrities, they must really come up and take a stand, and share their own experiences, not just to say depression is real. Rest in peace, so and so. What about you? What are you going through? Because so and so has passed on, but I want to relate to you. You are my favorite celebrity. What are you going through?
Association, the power of influence. As we were sharing that, yesterday at home cell, I was sharing about something that happened at work, that how we view things affect the energy that we portray around it. And one of the lady in the home cell was saying, as you were sharing your story, it relates to me as well because of how I behave at work. And that's the power of sharing even the bad things, to say, yes, I might be a Christian, but I went through this valley in my life, and this is how I went through the storm. Not only sharing the good things, that God is good, has blessed us, we bought a car and stuff like that, because life is not like that. You'll have valleys and you'll have mountains. The more we share the stories, become open. You said use all the platform, the stories on TV. Let's educate. The conversations that we have are very powerful, eh?
Yeah, true.
And then this morning, I was just being reminded as well. I was listening to Ulunga, our empowerment podcast host as well. They were saying, another guest, Guti, people do talk, but it seems like there's not enough platform where especially men are given opportunity to be heard. But when a person dies, when he's in a coffin, now we want to give him an attention. But before he committed suicide, there were signs, there were signals, there were things that I want to talk to someone, I need some help. But we're either too busy, or we're portraying that our life is so perfect that it makes it impossible for a guy to even approach you to say that I have this problem. Yeah.
Too bad, too sad.
Yes, but you guys are around. You're going to help us come out of this ditch.
Yes, abantu nje abeze, abantu abavuleleke ngezinkinga zabo, and they must come forward.
So, another thing that I can ask, that, like a mom at home, especially now that our society, we're being enlightened, there's been this awareness that is happening.
Yes.
And there's this lady again at church was sharing in one of the meetings to say, this was actually said. She was saying that, she just buried a relative, and she was wondering, what is it that she could have picked up that she didn't pick up that led to this suicide? The child committed suicide eventually. So I just wanted to ask, what are the signs or the things that we can look out for as parents at home to say that, you need to intervene? What type of signals can you share with us? signs and signals or behavioral changes?
Ukuthi it is very difficult uma ngabe usuzoyiqala kwi-teenager vele eselidala selikwi-teenage stage where vele i-isolation vele i-normalized kuma-teenagers, because you always feel like my parents do not understand me, sekunefoni ngihlala endlini with my tablet or whatever the case may be. So mina I would suggest ukuthi nje siqale lapha phansi from infancy, umntwana understand and ube close to your child and allow the child ukuthi yenze amaphutha, and ukuthi noma esebhedile akwazi ukuthi eze kuwena and share ukuthi no man, nginenkinga manje ngine-challenge, uthethe la othetha khona, but ubuye umbuyise futhi as a parent, so that uzom-understanda if happy ukuthi how does he or she expresses herself if ejabule, maye sad unjani, maye angry unjani. So umntwana mazi ekukhuleni kwakhe, so that kuzoba lula ukuthi noma sekunoshintsho ukwazi ukunotha ukuthi ayibo, she usually eats 3 times a day, now usedla once, or else izitori zakhe zidlala ngo-3:30, uyasijoyina ngo8:30 mekudlala whatever show kwi-TV, akasezi manje. So uma ngabe kukuthi awumazanga vele nisakhula, it would be very difficult to try to identify some symptoms, a mental issue, you know, because you would think it's just one of those things. But if you know your child ukuthi no man, around this time usuke esenza kanje, ila ibaleke khona nana ne-routine uyokuthi you know ukuthi la ekhaya ngo-7 we pray if ni family ethandazayo, or sibuka i-TV sonke siyadla manje, so that you can pick up ukuthi bethanda these activities akasawenzi. Mengabe kade esport elo esesikoleni akasawadlala ama-sport, and i-performance yakhe esikoleni isiyahlika, ubeyithanda i-maths and enama-clubs awa-athendayo akasawa-athendi, ube-bubbly around the house, she's no longer doing that. Even izinto azibukayo ku-TV ubejwayele ukubuka nje some comedies and stuff, all of a sudden sekwama-documentaries, abantu murder cases, abantu abazibulela, you know, you can see, you can only see ama-signs uma ngabe kukuthi you do know the healthy baseline of how the person was. It would be very difficult to say nansi inkinga ubukade uvele ungazi ukuthi what is this person my healthy, like how are they behaving uma ngabe be healthy. So mina, to answer that question, I would just recommend ukuthi for ama parents babe present from childhood. In fact, ukhule naye umazi, ubone nama-changes ukuthi okay, they used to like this, now it's this, so that when there is change we are able to say kunoshintsho la, and you try get to intervene as a parent to ask. And uma ngabe ubone ukuthi ngathi akafuni ukukhuluma nawe, dlulisela to someone, umalume, ukhazini, u-auntie, or even a family friend, ukuthi ake nikhulumeni naye because angisamtholi kahle, ukuze umntwana azi ukuthi une-support system intact around yena.
That's so powerful, eh? And I think you are so right, because when they are teenagers, they are very difficult now.
Yes.
To penetrate and stuff like that. And I once read somewhere that, you know, from toddler to 7 years of age, that's when you have the most influence over the child. Even bonding, how you relate and everything. Those are very important growth development stages. And I think as parents, we take those for granted. We're saying, we can leave the kids at crèche, they work, we don't spend enough time, we are not present. I think you said it's important for us to be present so that we can pick up when something is disconnecting, and also the importance of allowing children to make mistakes. And as you were talking, I was being reminded, my daughter is going to probably kill me for this, but she was actually sharing yesterday. She shared with me, she's at university doing 2nd year, and said, Mama, I didn't write the test properly, I think I'm not going to get this one. And you know, I just encouraged her, said, it's not the end of the world, there's always a sub, and there's always what we call amadoda score in our time, in my age, when you just get 50% just to get through. But I was comforted by the fact that the first person that came to mind to share that I didn't do well in the paper was my mom. The first person that comes to mind when I'm in problem, when I need to offload, when I need a shoulder, And that for me was very profound. I'm like, God, I hope this relationship, I managed to nurture it, that every time she's in trouble, I'm the first person that clicks in her head.
Yeah, that is very good, because really if kukuthi awukho eduze kuzoba khona oseduze, because someone is going to fill your space, ngeke sihlale si-vacant, and i-worry-ke or i-concern kuzovele kube umuntu o-wrong who will be whispering all these things ekumele ngabe zishiwo wena, you know. So nje that is very good.
So yeah, let's not allow people to feel our parental role in our children's life. Hey, last question, and I'm coming for my therapy session. I see I need it. Do you think it's important, I think you touched on this already, to have mental health as part of education curriculum? And how will this help build a better, healthier society?
Yes, I think it is important ukuthi ibe infused curriculum yesikole, especially from ama-primary schools, because sesifundile ukuthi because of your mental health you are able to understand yourself better as a person, and also understand the next person next to you, and to understand futhi the world, because a poor mental health can affect all these dimensions: self, person next to you, and the world. And the ngathi understand that way now you are able to help yourself, to create a level resilience, to say noma ngabe ama-traumatic events enzeka, but you are able to maneuver and uwanqobe positively, yabo, ukwazi ukuqhubekela phambili, ukuhlangane nokunye futhi, because ngeke sisho ukuthi ama-trauma kuhambe angabi khona, ayaphela. And also uma ngabe uzi-understanda wena at a young age, you are able futhi to understand the next person next to you, ukuze ukwazi ukuthi ube yileyo phila, ukwazi ukuthi uba-support nabanye abantu who undergo through izinto ezi-too overwhelming abangakwazi ukudila nazo. Uma ngabe ukuthi i-emotional intelligence yakho, because being mental health fit, kufida your emotional intelligence, that speaks to how you see yourself, understand yourself, regulate yourself, and the person next to you as well. So you are able to understand omunye umuntu, and also assist and support wherever you are needed. So as ukhula, you can just imagine uma ngabe sinabantwana ngempela abaziqonda bona, ukubona the people next to them and the world, ukuthi singane peace enjani emhlabeni, singanama-leaders wonke, futhi ngabe kuyaqala ukuthi sibe nabo-president mhlawumbe abawu-5 at the same time, because wonke umuntu uyi-candidate eligible ukuthi anga-leader because of these qualities, yabo. Akukho ma-challenges atheni, even mhlawumbe even kwa-crime ingehla, even i-employment kungakhona amalokhuzane, ama-avenues angcono to deal with i-unemployment esinayo. So really that question that is a yes or capital letter or bold with a font A50, a very big yes, to say really I include, and futhi the sooner the better. And what I take from what you are saying is that many of the societal ills that we suffer in our space, in our generation, they can be minimized because of we being equipped to be resilient, to know that these things happen, and the healing is like a journey as well. Yes, of course. Wow, thank you. Last question, Cecile. I think I have taken so much myself as well in my own personal space. You know, this conversation has really brought things to light in some areas. I already see where I need to improve going forward. So tell us, what are the 3 truths or quotes or scriptures, or maybe a favorite book, that if you were to hypothetically leave the world, and today was your last day, what will be those 3 things that you want to share with the world that you're leaving behind? Just one thing for me, not even 3. I think it covers everything. It covers ukuthi uluyanda ubani and uluyanda ufisani. I always say life is series of choices, and we must understand that ukuze ngempela sikwazi ukuthi sithi reach far, and ama choices don't necessarily speak to the big choices that one can make, to relocate to elinye izwe, to change career, or ukushintsha isifundo osenzayo esikoleni. Even the choice of the clothes that you are wearing manje, choice yokuthi kuyodliwa ine ekhaya for supper. Yabona uma ngase udayisete i-life ubone ama-choices okwazi ukuthi uwenze empilweni yakho, akuzuba nzima kangako ukuthi uthi make choices even ezintweni ezinkulu, you know. And having your ability yokuthi uthathe lelo lokhuzane lelo gqathu lokwenza ama-choices ngempilo yakho kuyakusiza ekuthenini noma ngabe ama-traumatic events ayenzeka, then what? Talk to yourself, have leyo uncomfortable conversation with yourself to say, okay fine, sengireyishiwe-ke, or okay fine, ushonile-ke ugogo phambi kwami, what am I going to choose? Am I going to choose ukuthatha le information engayizwa kwi-empowerment podcast and reach out ngifone ngi-consult with i-psychologist, or mina ngifuna ukuyosebenzisa ama-substances to numb the pain? Am I going to choose ukukhuluma nomunye umuntu because mhlambe I can't afford ama-psychological services? So everything nje, it is about a choice. Ezinye izinto we can't change them, kodwa noma sezenzakalile, it is our choice ukuthi senzani-ke now that sezenzakalile, trauma or no trauma. You can always choose izinto ukuthi uzenza kanjani. So for me nje, that is iyona nto engibusa kakhulu ukuthi ngikhethani, you know. So kukhona le saying ehleze ishiwo yokuthi happiness is a choice. Noma sekwenzakalile, are you going to choose ukuba sad wena and ube i-victim ukhale, or uzochoose ukuba uyofuna usizo, get up uyofuna usizo, or uzochoose ukujabula, you know. So nje life nje is a series of choices, and nanoku-understanda i-ability yakho yokuchoose, it creates that accountability skill, because I think if you skill uba accountable, ubone ukuthi as much as ama-adverse events enzeka, but eliphi iqhaza mina engilibambile ukuthi kwenzeke lokho, you know, so that you can make better decisions next time uma ngabe the same event or similar event happens.
Wow, that was so profound. So basically you're saying that the choices is a skill that you build, and it starts with small things, daily intention, daily decision making of today, how's my day going to turn out like? Because you can meet someone there in the street and he can start your road rage, but you choose to walk away because it's an intention that you choose to. It's a decision. We cannot control what happens to us, but we can control how we react.
Yes, of course.
Hey, that was powerful, Sissy. Last comment. So who do you want to send a shout out to? And also, can you inform our listeners how they get hold of your services?
Okay, as I mentioned, ngisebenza kama-Art Institute, sise Howard College, and ama-services ethu, so we offer ama-psychosocial services kulona lonke uhlobo labantu, and esi-proud ngakho-ke thina sisebenza nje ngobuntu. We are not only Eurocentric or westernized, but siyambheka umuntu ewumuntu, whether umZulu, umXhosa, umTswana, ubani, sikubheka nje uwena and everything that you come with, usho your culture and everything else. And okuhle nakakhulu-ke futhi ngathi ukuthi sitholakala mahhala kwi-landline yethu 0800 800019. You can always call and uzobe usuba allocated to a professional, a trained, ezokwazi ukuthi assist with whatever that you are going through. And shout out to my son uNesu uJehova ngempilo yakhe, engimthanda kakhulu, my family and my colleague uSandile Khadebe. And my friends. Oh yes, thank you.
Yes, definitely shout out to Putsandile. He was supposed to join us, right? And then technology didn't agree. Can you repeat the numbers, sis? I like the fact that you're saying that your approach is very diverse, and I think maybe sometimes where we're losing older people, when we come with westernized things and they cannot associate with it, they cannot relate, you know.
Yes.
Who has the inner childhood trauma, and at 60 years, it might be the issue that Ubaba never told me which I'm good enough, that he loved me. Nothing is going to grow with you. But now, how do you explain that to a 60-year-old traditional Xhosa men as an example.
Yes,
And
yes,
you're saying
yes.
you guys have a blend on your approaches.
Of course. So inamba yethu kuyiphinda, it is 0800 8000 19. Sitholakala e-UKZN eHoward College. That is where my offices ethu are located. But sisebenza nge-teletherapy-ke. You call, uya-allocate-wa i-psychologist yakho or i-social worker or i-registered counselor. Nathi siyakwazi futhi ukukufonela back sixoxisane nawe nge-language futhi ozoyizwa. Akudingi nanokuthi uzokhuluma isiNgisi. Uma umZulu khona oyisiZulu, umZulu khona umXhosa, akukho okungekho. Singangawe nje konke okufunayo sinakho.
And Howard College is in Durban?
Yes, it is in Durban.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, any last words of wisdom?
We always hear lento ethi uma ngabe khona usaziwayo wethu or anyone ke for that matter oshonile kumane kuthiwa let's be kind because depression is real. Yes, we must be kind. Yes, depression is real. But ngihleze ngibona leso statement mina se-incomplete. People can be kind all they want. But nathi as abantu who are going through things asukumeni and sibe intentionally ngezimpilo zethu, because no amount of kindness can help you udepressed usembhedeni ungakwazi ukuphuma embhedeni and do your day-to-day things. But sukuma nawe fonela kama-athi usizakale, sukuma uye kudokotela uyothola i-medication, sukuma uyokhuluma nomuntu, because no amount of kindness can help an ADHD person. You need nje i-medication. No amount of kindness can help uma ngabe unenkinga yemali, so sukuma uyofuna usizo, uyobuza ukuthi kusizakala kuphi kanjani. So as much as abantu bezoba kind kuthina, but we must also meet them halfway. As much as udentist ethi asimvakashele twice a year, nawe ngokwe-mental health yakho visit ama-professionals, iba intentional ukuthi ukale. Uma ngabe kuwukuthi umuntu uma-contraceptives, uyazi ukuthi after 3 months or 2 months depending kwi-injection oyisebenzisayo uyahamba ngithi ubuyojova. The mental health yakho do the same. People can be kind all they want, but akuze ukusiza wena uma ngabe ungenzi lutho. So as much as people are being kind to us, nathi we must meet them halfway. We must be very intentional. Sisukume siyofuna usizo.
No, I hear you. So you're saying we must be intentional, because I've once heard of this thing that what you are looking for always looks for you as well. When you stand up, you look for help, you will find help. Because you've made the decision that I'm going to get help, right?
Yes.
So we have to stand up and look for help.
Yes, khona nomhlabeleli othi uzoyithola kanjani uhlele khoneni. So if awusukumi ngempela uzoyithola kanjani uhlele khoneni.
Thank you very much. This was very informative, and I hope our listeners can only grow from here. And in future, when they need help, now they have your contacts: 0800 8000 19.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes, they can contact you there. I think for our listeners, I'd also like to send a shout out to my family, since Usis Lianda has already done that. I'd like to send a shout out to my mom, whom I'm in a better relationship with her now as an adult than I was a child. So there's always opportunity for growth. I'd like to send out a shout out to my aunt, who has taught me to be anchored in God, and also about faith. I think that has kept me. I like to send a shout out to my sister, and I would like to say to her, you're stronger than you think. Lastly, I like to send a shout out to my children, who have taught me, because of their different, characteristics and behavior, how to relate better to people. And to my husband, Mr. X, a shout out to you, sir. I couldn't be where I am if I was not your wife. Thank you. To our listeners, we have reached the end of our podcast. And I just like to close by saying that, remember, we are here to empower you, we are here to equip you, we are here to inspire you. And if you need help, Don't stay by yourself and die by yourself in a corner. Help is out there. Just shout out to someone. Ulianda said it better. Stand up, be intentional, go out, look for help. Then the help will come through. And if anyone has not told you lately, I like to say to you in closing, you matter. You are more than enough and you are lovable. Stay blessed.
Empowerment Podcast. Inspire, equip, and empower.